The world was shocked when Princess Diana died in a terrible car accident. It brought people together in their grief. King Charles III, her two sons, and other family members felt her loss very strongly. Even though they had a troubled marriage with a lot of fights and rumors of cheating, King Charles recently said that he hasn't been the same since she died. However, wait a minute. Wasn't Diana his ex-wife? Did he still love her? Everyone thought that the Prince of Wales had moved on, so it's strange that he still seems to miss her. Is there more to this story? The king isn't telling, but let's look more closely at the controversial truth about the royal family and the complicated relationship between Charles and Diana. When Diana and Charles got married, it was like a real-life fairy tale. People all over the world were completely captivated by the union of two royal figures. The ceremony was packed with glamour, from the stunning outfits to the over-the-top floral displays. But as we all know, the fairy tale quickly unraveled, revealing a marriage full of scandal, cheating allegations, and mounting tension. A divorce which once seemed unimaginable became inevitable. By 1992, Charles and Diana had separated, and their divorce was finalized in 1996. Diana received a hefty payout, including a lump sum of $22.5 million and $600,000 in yearly payments. After their divorce, Diana received a large financial settlement and kept her title as Princess of Wales, which was key to her identity within the royal family. Even though Queen Elizabeth II supposedly supported Diana keeping the title of Royal Highness, Charles insisted she lose it. This decision had big consequences, as it meant Diana no longer held the same rank in the royal family. She was expected to bow to other royals, including her sons. However, it was still clear that she would always be seen as part of the royal family and would continue to be invited to state and national events. Before Diana's tragic death, her relationship with Charles had actually improved. Despite the lasting impact of their divorce on his life, they had made real efforts to repair their relationship in the months leading up to her passing. After their marriage ended, Diana had a very public relationship with Dodi, which grabbed the media's attention. Interestingly, Charles, who had been at odds with Diana for years, seemed genuinely supportive of her new relationship. At the time, he was quoted saying, "I'm happy if she's happy," showing a shift from the tense, dramatic past they had shared. Their newfound harmony went beyond just tolerating each other's choices. Tina Brown, the editor of The New Yorker, had the chance to meet with Diana and observed that their relationship had become surprisingly friendly. She noted that they were getting along better than they had in a long time. They even made it a point to check in on each other regularly. Charles would often visit Diana at Kensington Palace, where they'd chat over tea and sometimes share laughs, something that was a huge contrast to the tension that had once marked their interactions. So, what led to this surprising and peaceful reconciliation between the two? According to Tina Brown, several factors played a part in the improved relationship between Charles and Diana. As their children grew older, both probably realized it was important to set aside old tensions and create a more peaceful environment for their family. Additionally, it seemed that Diana had come to terms with Camilla being part of Charles's life, which may have helped the couple reach a new level of understanding and acceptance. But how exactly did Camilla end up in Charles's life? We'll get to that soon. Tragically, in August 1997, Diana's life was cut short in an event that left the world reeling. After a relentless pursuit by the paparazzi through the streets of Paris, Diana was involved in a horrific car accident in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. She, along with the other passengers, suffered serious injuries. Despite efforts from a team of doctors to revive her for nearly 2 hours after her cardiac arrest, Diana tragically passed away from her injuries at around 4 a.m. The news was a devastating shock to the world, plunging millions into grief. In the wake of this tragedy, Diana's ex-husband, King Charles III, flew to Paris to bring her remains back to the UK. The nation was moved by his public display of grief, and this marked the beginning of an overwhelming wave of sorrow. Charles was at the forefront of this heart-wrenching moment, leading the procession as he carried her coffin, draped in a flag, from the hospital. Diana's two sisters were by his side, as well as French President Jacques Chirac and his wife, who had come to pay their respects. As Diana's coffin made its way on that somber journey, a second flag, the royal standard, was draped over it, a symbol of the royal family. The group of mourners traveled together to an airfield near Paris, but Charles's role didn't stop at retrieving Diana's body. He also had the heartbreaking task of informing their sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, of their mother's tragic passing. When the devastating news reached them at Balmoral in Scotland, William was only 15 and Harry just 12. Both boys were stunned and deeply saddened by the loss. Despite the challenges, Diana received a royal funeral, thanks to Charles. Queen Elizabeth II, known for her reserved nature and dedication to British traditions, was initially hesitant to arrange a public royal funeral. Given the tumultuous year and the various conflicts surrounding the royal family, the Queen had hoped for a more private ceremony, just for close family. After all, it had been a year full of unrest, and the Queen was not keen on turning Diana's death into another spectacle. However, the Queen's desire for privacy clashed with Diana's immense popularity and lasting influence on society, which meant the public expected to say goodbye in a more open way. In the end, it was Charles who pushed for a public funeral, despite the complicated history between him and Diana. His decision reflected his respect for Diana's memory and the lasting impact she had. He understood the importance of allowing the public to grieve and pay their respects. But this wasn't without its drama. Charles and the Queen reportedly had heated arguments over the funeral plans. Tensions were so high that even former Prime Minister Tony Blair was brought in to help settle things. While Buckingham Palace dismissed some of the reports as mere gossip, rumors about these fiery disagreements continued to swirl. The debate over Diana's funeral wasn't just limited to the royal family. Her own family was deeply upset by the Queen's wish for a private burial. At first, they refused to engage with the Queen or palace officials, angered by the lack of transparency. Despite this initial tension, Diana's public funeral ultimately prevailed, drawing millions of mourners from around the world to unite in grief. The night before the funeral, 300 members of the British community in Paris gathered for a memorial service, while people in Angola and Bosnia, where Diana had been active in raising awareness about the dangers of landmines, held their own services in her honor. In Bosnia, a landmine survivor, J.Z. Minko Bilic, who had met Diana just 3 weeks before, said, "She was our friend." In Egypt, where Dodi Fayed came from, people visited the British embassy in Cairo to leave tributes and sign a book of condolences. Many celebrities, including actors and musicians, blamed the paparazzi for their reckless behavior, with many criticizing their role in Diana's death. Her passing hit especially hard for people who could relate to her struggles. Those who saw her as a public figure who had faced personal battles, but seemed to have found a way to make a positive impact. Some researchers even compared Diana's death and funeral to trauma stressors, similar to those studied in psychological literature. In the days following her funeral, there was a noticeable increase in inappropriate hospital admissions, while the number of traumatic injury admissions dropped for at least 3 months, suggesting a shift in people's driving habits after her death. Diana's death had a significant impact, not just emotionally, but also socially and economically. There was a 30% drop in police calls and a 28% reduction in public order offenses, showing the public's shift in behavior after the tragedy. However, despite this collective grief leading to an increase in depression and traumatic stress, there was no noticeable spike in psychiatric emergencies. In Edinburgh, for instance, no major increase in psychiatric cases was reported. The national mourning also had economic repercussions. The Center for Economics and Business Research, CBR, estimated that retail sales dropped by 1% the week of Diana's death. Traffic jams in London, as thousands flocked to pay their respects, also led to a loss in productivity, with the CBR calculating the cost to businesses at around $200 million, roughly 0.1% of the country's GDP. In the long run, though, the CBR predicted that tourism and the sale of memorabilia would help counterbalance these short-term losses. In the years that followed, many tributes were created in Diana's memory. One of the most notable was the Flame of Liberty, a monument near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, which became a makeshift memorial after her death. People continued to leave notes there, but over time, condolence letters were removed, and the site is no longer used as a Diana memorial. In London, the Queen dedicated the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fountain in Hyde Park in 1997. Later, in 2021, her sons unveiled a statue of Diana in Kensington Palace's sunken garden, ensuring her memory would live on through these permanent installations. After all the grand memorials and tributes, Charles made a rather unexpected decision: his engagement to Camilla. The romance between Charles and Camilla, which had started during his marriage to Diana, was no secret. From the start, Charles made it clear that Camilla held a special place in his heart. He would spend time with her, talk to her on the phone, and let it be known that there was a deep emotional bond between them. Diana, of course, was well aware of their ongoing connection. In her famous interview with Martin Bashir, she openly said there were 3 of us in her marriage, referring to Camilla's presence and the strain it caused. But how did it all begin? Charles and Camilla's relationship didn't exactly start out of nowhere. It had been building for years. They first met in 1970, when Charles was 22 and Camilla was 24. They got to know each other through a mutual friend and quickly became close. The intriguing part is how Camilla introduced herself to Charles. She said, "My great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-grandfather. I feel we have something in common," according to the Washington Post. This strange, almost ironic connection seemed to foreshadow what was to come. Could it have been a sign that since their ancestors had done it, they too were destined to cross boundaries? Perhaps. As their friendship deepened, it eventually led to romance and the destruction of their marriages. In time, they both ended up married to each other, completing what some might see as a full circle. Royal expert Marlene Koenig, who documented their relationship, said the two were instantly attracted to each other. They spent a lot of time together, riding horses, hunting, and having long, late-night phone conversations. Charles even wrote her some deeply romantic love letters, but despite their strong connection, they didn't end up together right away. Why? Partly because Camilla was no longer a virgin at the time, which in the royal world was a huge issue. It was considered unthinkable for a senior royal, especially the future king, to marry a woman who wasn't a virgin. In contrast, Diana was seen as the perfect candidate, largely because she was untouched and could therefore fulfill the traditional image of a royal bride. Was that the only reason Charles chose Diana? It's a question that remains unanswered. In the meantime, Charles went off to serve in the Royal Navy, and after a final weekend together in December 1972, Camilla became engaged to Andrew Parker Bowles, the man she had been dating since she was 17. But their connection didn't disappear. According to Koenig, Charles and Camilla began their first affair in 1979, following the assassination of Charles's great-uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, by the IRA. Camilla became Charles's closest confidant, his best friend, his soulmate. Their affair ended when Charles became engaged to Diana, and the two were married in what became known as the wedding of the century. However, despite the fairy tale wedding, their romance didn't stay happy for long. Charles and Camilla were back together, but it wasn't an easy road. During their honeymoon, Diana, the new Princess of Wales, discovered love letters between Charles and Camilla, along with cufflinks that had 2 intertwined C's, a gift from Camilla. By 1986, Diana and Charles's marriage had completely fallen apart. In a letter published in Jonathan Dimbleby's authorized biography, Charles described feeling like he was in a kind of cage, longing to be free. Well, he was free to be with Camilla, his first love. After his divorce from Diana, 2 of Charles and Camilla's mutual friends independently suggested that Camilla reach out to him. Their friendship was quickly rekindled, and before long their affair resumed. This, of course, led to public disdain for Camilla. Her return to high society, especially within the royal family, began in earnest during Charles's 50th birthday celebration in November 1997. However, the unexpected death of Diana that August forced Charles to put his plans to publicly introduce Camilla on hold. Charles later introduced Camilla to his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, though their relationship was still in a delicate and uncertain phase. Camilla refused to take on the title of Princess of Wales, out of respect for Diana and their past relationship. When Diana's funeral came around, the image of the 2 young princes walking behind their mother's coffin, filled with grief, was utterly heartbreaking. But the emotional turmoil didn't end there. When it came time for Charles to introduce his longtime mistress to his sons, he found himself in a tough spot. The first meeting between 16-year-old William and Camilla was awkward and unplanned. William had come to visit his father at St. James's Palace and unexpectedly found Camilla there. Their half-hour meeting, filled with pleasantries, marked a difficult moment in the royal family's history, especially as it came less than a year after Diana's tragic death. A spokesperson for Charles addressed the media's coverage of the situation, stressing that the meetings between Charles's children and Camilla were private family matters. Despite the media frenzy, the spokesperson asked that the emotional weight these interactions carried for William and Harry be respected, highlighting the importance of understanding their feelings. As for Charles's reputation after Diana's death, it was still heavily tarnished. The long-running rumors about his affair with Camilla were confirmed when Charles openly admitted to his extramarital relationship in a candid interview with journalist Jonathan Dimbleby. He explained that he had tried to stay faithful to Diana until their marriage fell apart, but the damage had already been done. The public's memory of Diana's struggles in her marriage resurfaced, and people were reminded of her painful account of trying to create a fairy tale life, only to find that Charles was emotionally distant, more absorbed in his books than in his new wife. As the honeymoon progressed, Diana felt more and more isolated. She had hoped for a deep emotional connection with Charles, but it became clear that they were rarely alone, making her feel even lonelier. The rising tension in their marriage also revealed Diana's battle with bulimia, though the full extent of her pain was hidden for much of their early time together. Her suffering seemed to be overshadowed by Charles's ongoing attachment to Camilla. Diana often found herself haunted by thoughts of Camilla and the fractured state of her relationship with Charles. Diana experienced a fleeting moment of optimism when she learned that she was expecting a child. She experienced a sense of relief as a result of the news, which provided her with a momentary reprieve from the turbulent emotions she was experiencing and a sense of purpose in her new role as Princess of Wales. Nevertheless, the pregnancy led to an increase in both her physical and emotional pressure. It was around this time that Diana experienced a terrifying tumble down the stairs, which caused the court to be shocked. Although neither she nor the baby were hurt, this occurrence was interpreted as a dark cry for assistance, a symbol of the profound anguish that Diana was experiencing in silence. Fortunately, neither of them were hurt. A frantic request for assistance in a life that appeared to be coming apart was, unfortunately, not recognized by anyone at the time for what it actually was: a desperate appeal for support. In the interview that was broadcast 3 years before the terrible murder of Diana, Charles publicly admitted that he had been unfaithful to Diana. This interview was a critical moment that severely undermined his reputation, particularly as a potential future monarch. Due to the combination of this disclosure and the charges that he mistreated Diana, Charles's reputation was seriously damaged. During the time that Prince William and Prince Harry were receiving public compassion for their loss following the death of Princess Diana, Charles was not able to receive the same level of support. A profound scar was left on the public's perspective as a result of his adultery, as well as the difficult years that he spent married to Diana. There was a significant undercurrent of hatred directed against Charles and the royal family, despite the fact that the loss of Diana was accompanied by a great deal of sadness. The scars that were caused by Charles's turbulent marriage to Diana continued to be a burden even after a significant amount of time had gone. It would take years for Charles's reputation to recover. His personal struggles extended to his sons as well, particularly Prince Harry, whose teenage years were filled with hardships. His sons were particularly affected by his struggles, particularly considering that Harry was just 12 years old at the time of his mother's passing. The royal family was extremely anxious about how he would deal with the loss of his mother. Over the course of his life, Prince Harry has been quite open and honest about the challenges he encountered with his mental health as a direct result of Diana's demise. This has thrown light on the significant emotional impact that her passing had on him. Harry was discovered to be drinking beer and taking drugs on a regular basis when he was 16 years old. He was primarily utilizing cannabis. As a result of this revelation, King Charles decided to take control of the situation, albeit in an unconventional manner. For the purpose of educating Harry about the repercussions of substance abuse, Charles decided to send him to a rehabilitation clinic rather than sending him through the conventional treatment process. Despite the fact that Charles's goal was to provide assistance to his son, this action was embarrassing for the royal family because it brought to light the difficulties that Harry encountered in coping with his grief and the emotional fallout of losing his mother at such a young age. As Prince Harry became older, he continued to struggle with a variety of issues. When he was 20 years old, he once again made headlines when he was caught attending a costume party while dressed in a Nazi uniform and wearing a swastika armband around his arm. Harry's public image was further complicated as a result of this problematic occurrence, which aroused uproar and created controversy. In response to the photograph that was taken of Prince Harry at a costume party while he was smoking a cigarette while dressed in a Nazi outfit, the public's reaction was sharp and immediate. A great number of people, including Michael Howard, the leader of the British Conservative Party, expressed their unhappiness and uncertainty. In light of the fact that the royal family's reputation was still being put to the test, this occurrence only served to exacerbate the difficulties that Charles encountered as a single parent. Another difficult problem was figuring out how to include Camilla into the royal family. In spite of the tragic circumstances surrounding Diana's passing, Camilla had a tough time gaining the public's full acceptance due to her enormous impact and enduring appeal. Furthermore, the royal family itself was subjected to criticism for her part in the drama. There was opposition to Charles's relationship with Camilla, particularly from Queen Elizabeth II, who had serious concerns about the couple's relationship. Camilla, in particular, was opposed to the relationship. The Queen was said to have even given Sir Michael Peat, Charles's private secretary, the responsibility of seeking to break off the friendship between the two of them. According to these allegations, the Queen had a strong aversion to Camilla and was adamant about terminating their connection since she considered her to be a nasty woman. Rather than being a clear royal issue, the Queen's stance on the matter gave the impression that it was more of a dramatic family affair. Even though there were a lot of disagreements between them, Charles and Camilla ended up getting married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Castle. It is not without dispute that the marriage took place. As the leader of the Church of England, which is opposed to divorce, Queen Elizabeth II did not attend the wedding. This was primarily due to the fact that she is a member of the Church of England. As a result of her absence, there was suspicion that the Queen might harbor personal hostility for Camilla. However, this was never confirmed. In spite of this, the Queen later threw a banquet for the newlyweds, during which she expressed her sincere wishes to them and acknowledged the challenges that they had conquered together. Despite the fact that the wedding had been laden with public scandal, she showed her pride in their tenacity in her address. Over the course of several years after Diana's passing, fresh revelations on the challenges she faced inside the royal family began to emerge, further solidifying her legacy. Documentaries and depictions of her life played out on screen continued to attract audiences all over the world, serving as a constant reminder of the continuing impact she had on the world. The Crown, which is available on Netflix, has been a big contributor to the public's interest in the history of the royal family, particularly with regard to the turbulent relationship that existed between Princess Diana and Prince Charles. Their fourth season has been particularly influential in this regard. Throughout the course of the season, the complications of their marriage, Charles's affair with Camilla, Diana's struggles with bulimia, and her emotional misery are explored in minute detail. Despite the fact that the program is a dramatization of historical events, it has prompted profound conversations and brought attention to the emotional aspects of Diana's life. As a result of the publication of the fourth season, social media became a battleground for fans to express their opinions about Charles's actions, particularly with reference to his relationship with Diana. Social media channels such as Twitter and TikTok were utilized by Diana's followers in order to express their affection for the late princess and to express their disapproval of Charles's behavior. For some people, the hashtag Kawa became a symbol of the division that exists between those who favor Camilla and those who support Diana. Some people called for respect to be shown to both women. Despite the fact that Charles's ascension to the throne on September 8th, which was a momentous occasion for the British monarchy, his reign was overshadowed by the public's unending devotion for Diana. Because of this change in the monarchy, There have been talks on social media regarding Diana being the true Queen of Britain, in contrast to Camilla's status with the British government. Grant Harold, who had previously served as the butler to King Charles, was one of the individuals who expressed the same feelings. He advised Diana's followers to show respect for the newly married royal pair during this period. The fact that Camilla has become a consistent and reassuring presence in King Charles's life is becoming increasingly apparent as the couple's marriage, which is about to reach its 17th anniversary, draws closer. Nevertheless, in spite of this, Diana's legacy continues to elicit powerful feelings and continues to be a topic of ongoing contemplation, particularly as the monarchy moves on to the next generation of leadership. The public's fascination about the royal family's daily lives and the hardships they encountered beyond the palace walls was further fueled by the declaration that King Charles was battling cancer. This announcement merely gave more weight to the existing conversations about the royal family. As he continues to juggle both his royal obligations and health difficulties, King Charles is confronting a number of personal challenges, which are highlighted by the announcement of his cancer diagnosis, which, while upsetting to many, underscores the emotional challenges he is facing. The precise nature of the cancer has not been divulged. However, it has been established that he has started receiving treatment on a consistent basis and has delayed the performance of certain official responsibilities in order to concentrate on his health. In spite of the considerable personal toll, he continues to maintain a bright and optimistic outlook toward his eventual return to working full-time in the public sector. The timing of his health problems has unavoidably given rise to discussion regarding whether or not they could be a consequence of his acts in the past, particularly his treatment of Princess Diana. The emotional and psychological toll of his previous marriage to Diana, as well as the extreme public scrutiny surrounding his personal life, has left a permanent impact on his reputation. Although it is impossible to absolutely relate his current health condition to events that occurred in the past, it is obvious that his reputation will certainly be affected. It is reasonable that some people could view Charles's present health issues as connected with the long-standing tensions of his history. The death of Diana and the turbulent years that followed were formative moments for Charles, and it is also worth noting that these events occurred. On a more intimate level, the revelation of King Charles's illness has had an impact on the bond that he has with his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. Although they have a troubled relationship with their father, both sons have reached out to offer their support during this trying time. This demonstrates the unbreakable tie that exists among the family, despite the fact that there have been disagreements in the past. While Prince William has been dealing with his wife's personal health problems, he has not exhibited any symptoms of distancing himself from his father. This highlights the fact that there is a spirit of reconciliation and mutual care within the royal family, despite the delicate past that exists between Charles and Diana. It is possible that this era of introspection and healing within the royal family will provide an opportunity for reconciliation. This would demonstrate that, despite the personal and public struggles, family relationships can continue to be strong, and that the healing process is never fully finished.